But the beauty of the plant proteins, it's much cleaner burning fuel. It doesn't leave an acid waste like the protein does. And when I was consulting with this man, he said to me, I believe if Dr. Atkins had read the China study, Atkins would have become a vegetarian. What an interesting comment. So you can get those results, but you can do it on a plant diet as long as you do the legumes. And so many people say, oh, legumes, you've got to soak them, you've got to cook them. Well, when you go home tonight, just fill up the saucepan and fill it up with lentils. In the morning, rinse it well, bring it to the boil, rinse it again, put it in your slow cooker. There's lots of shortcuts. Or soak a whole lot, rinse heaps of them and then put them in snap lock bags in the freezer. Then you just pull it out, cook them. There's lots of shortcuts. And you can get organic beans in tins. Just make sure you bring them to the boil and rinse them very well. So it's easy, it need not be difficult. You see, animal protein, it burns at, so let's look at protein. Animal protein, only 58% is burnt as fuel. So that's a 42% waste. That's the acid waste. And that's what Dr. Colin Campbell found in his book, The China Study. He could switch cancer cells on and off, and we looked at this briefly when we looked at cancer on the first night, because it's an acid waste, and cancer thrives in an acid environment. We looked at that. Whereas plant protein, it's a lot cleaner burning fuel. It doesn't have that acid waste. So with plant protein, you're getting up to about 80% easy is burnt as fuel.
Are you overweight and struggling to lose those extra pounds? You're not alone. Obesity has become a major health issue, affecting millions of people worldwide. In the US alone, around 42% of adults are classified as obese, and the numbers keep rising. The World Health Organization has warned that obesity increases the risk of serious conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and even certain cancers. To lose weight, people often try extreme diets, expensive supplements, or intense workout plans, only to see little to no results. But what if I told you that the key to weight loss isn't starving yourself or following the latest fad diet? So what should you eat to shed pounds in a healthy and sustainable way? Stay tuned as we break it all down. As a thank you for joining me today, we're giving away 100 free copies of my best-selling book to subscribers. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, like this video, and comment why you want to win.
Now this piece of information, which is fact, is in just about every weight loss book as proof that if you want to lose weight, don't eat the fat. It's going to give you more than twice the calories. But what the people don't understand is what a calorie is. A calorie is a unit of energy. And if you want a high energy food, what do you eat? Fat. It's going to give you more than twice the units of energy compared to glucose. But if you're eating more calories than you can burn, yes, it's going to be stored. That's why one of the best things that you can do for weight loss is to eat breakfast like a king. I have to admit that I think I eat lunch like a king and breakfast like a queen, but whatever. And sometimes the queen eats as much as the king. Lunch like a queen, and then tea like a pauper, or you call it supper, yeah? I think that when I say tea, you probably think I mean a cup of tea, yeah? But we call an evening meal tea. And as one lady said to me, well, what do paupers eat? I said, sometimes nothing. What many people are doing today, and I see it in many countries I go to, they eat breakfast like the pauper, they eat lunch like the pauper, and the tea or the supper is the king and the queen together. That's like going on a journey, and you start your long journey and you go to the gas station, we call it a petrol station, called a gas station, and just put a little bit in. And then an hour later, put a little bit more in. And then an hour later, put a little bit more in. And then you've done this all day. And then you finally get to your destination, you go into the gas station and you fill your tank and then park it in the garage. How much sense does that make? And yet that's what most people are doing. Little bit here, little bit there, little bit there. End of the day, king and the queen together, and the body says, finally, we've got some nourishment. And then they say, oh no, they've gone to bed. So what are we going to do with all these calories, these units of energy? We're just going to have to store them. It's really only probably the last 100 years that the main meal has been had at the end of the day. In fact, traditionally, the main meal was always in the middle of the day, especially before electricity, because they didn't have the light at night and it was just more convenient. I was talking to a man who grew up in a little English village. So I was talking to him about 18 years ago, and then he was in his 60s. And he said, the schools closed down, the mines and the businesses closed down, and everyone used to go home and have their main meal. And he said at night we'd have bread and dripping. Well, that was considered something light. So in many cultures you will see that traditionally the main meal was always had in the middle of the day. But again, I don't think anyone planned it. It's just this fast society. And some people say, it's the only time I've got time. Well, there's wonderful things called slow cookers. And one mother said to me, I put my millet on at night, so by morning, when I get up, there it is, hot, ready to eat. She said, I wash my slow cooker, and then I put my soaked beans that I've rinsed and brought to the boil and rinsed again, put them in, put the vegetables, and put the slow cooker on again. She's a homeschool mum. She says, because I feed the children so well in the morning, how does she feed them? She feeds them a high fibre diet. All your plant foods have fibre. She feeds them generous proteins. So what are the proteins? Legumes, nuts, seeds, they're your best proteins. And healthy fats. Healthy fats are found in your nuts, your seeds, your coconut oil, olive oil. They're the two oils that have stood the test of time.
And that's the key, giving the body the right fuel at the right time. When you start your day with a nutrient-dense meal, your body has the energy it needs to function properly. Your brain works better, your metabolism runs more efficiently, and you're less likely to experience those mid-morning energy crashes that leave you reaching for caffeine or sugar. But what happens when people skip breakfast or just have something light like toast and coffee? Their blood sugar spikes quickly, then crashes, leaving them feeling tired and hungry again. That's why so many people find themselves snacking all day. They're never truly satisfied. Then, by the time dinner comes around, they're starving. And what do? They overeat, consuming the largest meal of the day right before bed, when their body has the least opportunity to burn off those calories. This pattern not only leads to weight gain, but also disrupts sleep. A heavy meal late at night forces the digestive system to keep working while the body is trying to rest. Instead of using that time to repair and detoxify, the body is busy processing food. That's why people who eat late at night often wake up feeling sluggish and unrested. In contrast, when the main meal is eaten earlier in the day, the body has time to use that energy, and by evening, digestion is lighter, allowing for better sleep. That's why traditional cultures prioritized the midday meal. It wasn't just about convenience, it was about optimizing energy levels and digestion. So what's the solution? It doesn't mean you have to completely overhaul your routine overnight, but small changes can make a big difference. Start by making breakfast a priority. Focus on whole foods rich in fibre, protein, and healthy fats. Instead of a sugary cereal or just a cup of coffee, try oatmeal with nuts and seeds or eggs with vegetables. For lunch, aim for a balanced meal with plenty of protein and healthy fats to keep you full and satisfied. Then in the evening, keep dinner light, soups, salads, or a small portion of protein with vegetables. It might take some adjustment, but over time your body will thank you. You'll have more energy, better digestion, and improved sleep. And most importantly, you'll break free from the cycle of eating the wrong foods at the wrong times, leading to better long-term health.
And when white man went to the South Pacific Islands, he said, stop eating the coconut oil. It's going to cause you to be obese. It's going to give you heart disease. It's going to give you diabetes, cancer. And they all said, what's that? And they've been eating the coconut oil for centuries. But they listened to the white man. I was on the Fiji Islands. Do you know, before the white man came, cannibalism was pretty big. You know, there was some scary spiritual practices that they used to partake of. Sometimes if a child happened to walk in an area that was considered sacred, that child had to be thrown in the river to given to the spirits. You know, there were a lot of crazy things there. So the Fijians were freed from many harmful practices. So they listened to the white man. But they could have taught the white man how to eat. So the white man said, stop eating the coconut, it's going to give you all these problems. So they listened. And then white man introduced 5 lethal whites. White sugar, white rice, white flour, white refined salt, and white cow's milk. They stopped the valuable white, the coconut, and brought in the 5 lethal whites. And if you go to the South Pacific Islands today, you will find diabetes, you will find heart disease, you will find obesity. I was in the Cook Islands a few years ago. Wonderful place. When I arrived, they just put lathes and big floral arrangements all around my head, all around me. They're very warm, very welcoming. You can go around the whole island in about an hour. And I was teaching basic health principles, and I was surprised how large the people are. You see the bread shops and the cake shops have come in. And I know in the Fiji Islands, hot bread shops are open till 11 o'clock at night. And anyone who walks past that shop, and I think we all know the lovely smell of cooked bread. Oh, and they are big. They're obese, they have got disease, not because of the coconut, but because they've stopped the coconut. You see, it's not the fat that makes you fat. It's actually these refined carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates are not bad. What a relief, we like them. The problem is when they're overdone and refined. That's the problem. When they're overdone and refined. So you don't have to stop the carbohydrates. You just have to make sure they're not overdone, they're not refined, and ideally use replacements for the wheat. Because as we looked at in diabetes this morning, in the hybridisation of the wheat, they change the starch structure and it gets the blood sugar level up higher than even refined sugar. Ooh. And so changing the times that you eat, that makes a big difference. And changing the food you eat makes a huge difference. I was reading the testimony of a chef. He was large, obese. And he said he used to eat little bits all day long. All day long. That's all he'd eat, little bits all day long. So he decided to do an experiment. He decided to get all the little bits and put it into 3 meals. He knew the old saying, and have most of it at breakfast and lunch. And he lost a lot of weight, and he ate the same amount of food. And he ate the same type of food. He just changed the times when he did it. Because he gave his stomach a break. You see, it's like my husband. He says, I had a 2-hour job to do in the office today. He said, at the end of the day, it's 8 hours later and I still haven't done it. Because he said someone would ring up. Someone would come into the office. I kept getting interrupted. Has that ever happened to you? That's exactly what happens to digestion. When we put food in our stomach, we should now leave it. Let it do its work. After about an hour and a half, 2 hours, start sipping on some water. Then you don't water down your hydrochloric acid. It takes 3.5 to 4 hours to digest a meal.
And if we keep interrupting that process by constantly eating, our digestive system never gets a real chance to complete its work. Instead of fully breaking down and absorbing nutrients, the body ends up storing excess food as fat, leading to weight gain and metabolic issues. This is why structured meal times are so important. The body operates in cycles, and digestion is just one part of that rhythm. After digestion, the body enters a phase where it focuses on repair, detoxification, and energy balance. But if we keep snacking or drinking calorie-heavy beverages, we disrupt this cycle. The pancreas has to keep releasing insulin, the liver has to keep processing incoming food, and the stomach never gets a real break. Over time, this leads to insulin resistance, inflammation, and the very diseases that people in the South Pacific Islands never struggled with before modern diets were introduced. It's fascinating to see how indigenous diets rich in natural unprocessed foods kept populations healthy for centuries. But once the refined processed foods came in, high in sugar, low in fibre, and full of artificial additives, health started to decline. The introduction of these lethal whites wasn't just a shift in diet, it was a shift in lifestyle, in metabolism, and in overall well-being. So the key takeaway is simple: eat whole, natural foods, follow structured meal times, and allow your body to go through its natural digestive cycles without constant interruption. The people of the South Pacific once thrived on these principles, and we can learn a lot from their traditional way of eating.
Dr. Atkins, he said he was a GP, late 40s, putting on a bit of excess weight. He knew his science. He knew that carbohydrates stored as fat, so he decided to do an experiment on himself. He decided to stop all carbohydrates. And he theorised that if he stopped all carbohydrates, his body would start to live on his fat stores. So what did he eat? He chose foods that had no carbohydrate. So his diet was high in protein, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs, that's a lot of protein. Fat, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs, that's a lot. But something else surprised me that you never hear about. He ate 3 cups of vegetables a day, and 1 cup had to be greens. And so there was the fibre. The weight just fell off him. He theorised right. He wasn't giving carbohydrates to his body, so, well, hardly any, a little bit in the vegetables. So his body started to live on his fat stores. The weight started to drop off him. He was never hungry because these are the 3 foods that give the feeling of satiation, satisfaction. He had lots of energy because your liver can convert protein and fat to glucose if it needs it, and it can break down your fat stores to give you glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis, creating glucose from the fat stores. Has he found the perfect diet? Never hungry, lots of energy, weight's falling off him, so he started to put some of his patients on this. It is estimated that 11 million people were helped by his diet. His book was #1 on the New York Times best-selling book list 4 years running. This guy demands some attention. But the problem is that after a while, some of his patients were developing arthritis because this is a high-acid food. In fact, I had a man come to me wanting a consultation when I was in New York a few years ago. He said, I used to be one of Dr. Atkins' patients. He said, I'm a vegetarian, I'm an Adventist, but I was getting overweight, I was getting diabetes, heart disease, so I went to Dr. Atkins, because he's a very famous doctor. And Dr. Atkins, he said, was a very gracious man. He said, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to stop this high carbohydrate diet. So he said, I started eating meat. I didn't eat a lot. I had a lot of vegetables. He said, I didn't get diabetes. He said, my heart problems all resolved. He said, the weight dropped. But he said, I'm getting arthritis. And he said, you are the first nutritionist that hasn't totally slammed Atkins. I'm interested. I said, well, Atkins' theory was correct. It's what I have shown you today. But what you can do superior to Atkins. You can do the plant proteins. You can do the plant fats. Dr. Atkins, on his first stage, he got people down to 20 grams of starch, carbohydrates a day. Do you know there's no need to go that low? All you need to do is greatly reduce the carbohydrates, ideally stop the wheat, eat more vegetables, eat more legumes, nuts and seeds, and you can get a similar result.
Dr. Atkins's diet helps with weight loss primarily by shifting the body's metabolism away from carbohydrates and toward fat as a fuel source. Normally, the body relies on carbohydrates for energy, breaking them down into glucose. However, when carbohydrate intake is drastically reduced, insulin levels drop, and the body enters a state called ketosis. In ketosis, the liver begins to convert stored fat into ketones, which become the primary energy source. This process leads to rapid fat burning and weight loss. One of the key benefits of this diet is that it helps control hunger. Protein and fat take longer to digest compared to carbohydrates, leading to a feeling of fullness for longer periods. This naturally reduces overall calorie intake without the need for strict portion control or calorie counting. Many people on the Atkins diet report that they feel satisfied with their meals and experience fewer cravings, making it easier to maintain. Another advantage is the stabilization of blood sugar levels. Since the diet limits high carbohydrate foods, there are fewer spikes and crashes in blood sugar, which can often lead to hunger and overeating. By keeping blood sugar levels steady, the diet helps prevent sudden energy drops and cravings for sugary foods. Additionally, reducing carbohydrate intake can lead to a reduction in water weight. Carbohydrates are stored in the body along with water, so when carb intake is lowered, excess water is released. This results in a noticeable drop in weight within the first few weeks of the diet, which can be motivating for many people. However, while the Atkins diet is effective for weight loss, it must be followed carefully. Over-reliance on animal-based proteins and fats can lead to health concerns like increased cholesterol levels and acidity in the body. That's why some people modify the diet by incorporating more plant-based proteins and healthy fats to achieve a balanced and sustainable approach. And that's how the Atkins diet helps with weight loss. By shifting your body into fat-burning mode, keeping you full longer and stabilizing blood sugar, it's no surprise so many people have seen results. But remember, balance is key. Whether you follow Atkins or a modified version, choosing the right foods makes all the difference. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more content like this. See you in the next one.